What's up, gamers? You have TigerChainsaw. In my last video, I reviewed the first Fighting Force on the PS1, and today I'm going to be reviewing Fighting Force 2, and this is my childhood copy, and I remember the day that I got this game. I was at Walmart digging through the probably $10 bin at that time, and I pulled it out, and I was like, Dad, can I get this game? I had no idea why I wanted it. Maybe I played a demo of it at some point, but my dad was just like, sure, why not? And so I actually had Fighting Force 2 before I had Fighting Force 1. And so we're gonna see if nostalgia plays any factor into my score or my review of Fighting Force 2. Now, if you are a first-time viewer or if you just haven't yet, go ahead, hit that sub button because I've got tons of game reviews on this channel ranging from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, all the way up to the PS5 and the Switch. So if you hit that sub button, you help me grow, and you get to check out all of those game reviews, and there is a ton of them. All right, let's figure out why there was no Fighting Force 3, because Fighting Force 2, well, it's not very good. But let me get into all of that right now. Hey, what's up? Do you guys remember our good friend Ken Lockley from the original Fighting Force, who was the producer? Now, if you don't recall who that was, you can go ahead and check out my Fighting Force review, but I will go ahead and tell you who he was in case you forgot. Ken Lockley was the producer of the first Fighting Force, and he's also the producer of the second Fighting Force. Now, what makes him so, well, the word's not special, but what makes him historic in this series? Well, he was the first man in California to be caught on a computer trying to have sex with children. So he went to prison for quite a long time, and the first game really reflected that. Now, the second game is not so goofy, but I just wanted to let you all know that Ken is back as the producer of Fighting Force 2. This was probably his last game before he went to prison. Let's get into the history. 2 years after the release of the multiplayer beat-em-up Fighting Force, Core Design and Eidos Interactive produced Fighting Force 2 in 1999 for the PlayStation and the Sega Dreamcast. The sequel dropped the multiplayer but continued the emphasis on the destructible environment and weapons to bash the brains of your enemies. We're kicking switches and loading clips in this Fighting Force 2 review, starting with the plot, but be warned, spoilers are ahead. In the first Fighting Force, the plot and the character descriptions were so ridiculous, they were over the top, they were utterly trashy and bad. It was so 90s. But thankfully, Fighting Force 2 kind of reeled it back in and returned to reality. So let's go ahead and check out what the manual has to say. In Fighting Force 2, Hawk Manson returns, who was a former US Marine who served on duty in the 80s and the early 90s. Hawk was one of the 4 featured playable characters to choose from in the original, but he is the only character that you can play as in Fighting Force 2. Now, I'm not gonna bore you by reading the entire manual, but let me just go ahead and give you the gist of what's going on and what Hawk is doing. Hawk is going in to investigate a corporation that's been tied to human cloning. This corporation has been dreaming of cloning the perfect soldier capable of surviving any environment and fighting without a consciousness. Hawk is going to be going into the base of this corporation and trying to find damning evidence and data to support that they are doing all of these terrible things and conducting human cloning. But Hawk is on his own, and if he screws up, your team will deny even knowing him. That seems simple enough. Let's get to the Fighting Force 2 gameplay. For some reason, they took away co-op multiplayer for Fighting Force 2, which was a big mistake. It was really fun to roam the streets and the buildings in the first game with your friend and smash bad guys together. I'm really not sure why they omitted this feature from the second game, but I was disappointed. Now, the main character, Hawk, he gives off Duke Nukem 90s vibes with his commentary and cutscene retorts. He comes off as a douche with his personality. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with the good about Fighting Force 2. Hawk can now carry multiple weapons and sometimes up to 5. Weapons are now the new norm. In the first game, you might have picked up a weapon, bashed some guys' heads in with it, and went along your merry way for the next few minutes, punching and kicking. In Fighting Force 2, I felt very naked without a weapon. There's a big emphasis on guns now. Guns were a scarcity in the first game, but in Fighting Force 2, I fought my way through each level with numerous guns in my hands. Levels were generous with giving you ammo and different types of guns, and Hawk was toting shotguns, machine guns, Uzis, pistols, bazookas, and crossbows in the game. You don't need to hoard your ammo, but don't go shooting away at everything if you can kick it to death instead. It was a notable change from the first game, from hand-to-hand combat to gunfights that were much more focused on in the sequel. I'll also say that the graphics and textures have improved. I especially thought that the blue flames and the electricity that shot through the computers, control panels, and vending machines when you broke them looked pretty realistic for the PlayStation. There's also a fair share of secrets and hidden rooms to find on each level that will give you health and more weapons. Levels show a nice variety of scenery too. There's snow bases, ancient temples, skyscrapers, computer labs, factories, and more. Fighting Force 2 showed improvements in a lot of sections, but there's also a ton that frustrated me. Boss fights are a joke. In the first game, the bosses were a pushover, and that trend unfortunately continued. The first boss looks like he is straight from the world of Warcraft with a giant hammer and cartoonish muscle build. He has a large health bar, but I just punched and kicked him a few times and he went down like a sack of potatoes. The second boss resembled Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man, and he was even more of a pussy than the first boss. Unfortunately, bosses were a big whiff by the programmers. They were either too easy or just plain stupid. One boss was a beefy man on the end of a spring, like a jack-in-the-box. You pushed buttons to drop food in front of him, and then you punched him when he ate. His health slowly drained, and even when I filled him with lead from all of my guns, it must have took me 5 minutes to kill this clown, or Joker, or Jack-in-the-Box. My biggest gripe is that Fighting Force 2 was very unfair without any warning in certain sections. I despised the snow base level. I hated it so much, not because of its difficulty, but because of the ways it would kill me without any warning. Throughout the game, you are encouraged to destroy every object and item for bonus points and to pick up ammo or new weapons. In the snow base, I marched on through it, punching and kicking items with no worries. When I was almost done with the level, I started punching on what I thought was a giant pipe on the wall. After hitting it a few times, the entire base exploded, killing me. It turns out that that pipe was actually a missile. There was no warning about it, and it made me hesitant to punch any other objects, which rewarded you again with more items. I had to replay the entire section, which took about 15 minutes to get back to that part. I resisted the urge to punch the missile, but in the next room, a guard threw a grenade and blew up another missile, killing everyone. Again, I marched 15 minutes through the level to get back to that part. I carefully took out the guards, avoided punching the missiles, and then reached the control panel. I smashed that control panel to take down the shields of the generators that was required, and then I went on my merry way. But about 20 seconds later, I was dead from a massive explosion. Infuriated, I looked up what the hell just happened. It turns out that after you take down the shield, you have a short amount of time to run out of the base through all the hallways you've never explored before to find the exit before the base explodes. There's no warning of this at all. The snow base level was poorly designed and was extremely unfair. Fighting Force 2 has some great ideas, but they don't fully come together. It's like giving a novice chef 5-star ingredients in cookware. He may be able to put something together, but it doesn't come out the way they had hoped. My Fighting Force 2 playthrough had moments of fun, and I even found some boss fights enjoyable. But with few checkpoints, I don't care to play games that have unfair deaths. Fighting Force 2 has short bursts of fun with the destruction of objects and weapons to choose from. The gameplay never changes though. Defeat everyone in the room and the last guy will drop a card to use on the door. Repeat it until the end of the level. After the first few missions, it gets really old. Now death will find you not by combat, but by poor level design. Hawk is not a likable character either, and he comes off as that guy that tries to impress everyone with his edgy catchphrases. I just smoked that boss like you're gonna smoke my pole. The only things I beat up are bad guys and pussy, and I'm looking at 25 years to life for that last one. The first Fighting Force was mediocre, but even though it looks better, Fighting Force 2 stumbles along the way to a repetitive ending. Fighting Force 2 was also not very well received by critics or gamers, and it resulted in the game being the last in the series. Now, a fun fact, there was a Fighting Force 3 that was in development for the PS2, but it got scrapped. But there was even a build of it before it got canned. It's really not that unfortunate though, because Fighting Force 2 kind of stinks, which is why Fighting Force 2 scores a 5.9 out of 10, making this game pretty questionable. Alright gamers, that was my review of Fighting Force 2 on the PS1 from 1999. I'd love to hear from gamers who have played both Fighting Force and Fighting Force 2. Which one did you like better? If you played Fighting Force 2 and you also played the first one, were you confused on why they got rid of the multiplayer? I personally loved that, and I thought that would have been a really nice touch to have friends suffer together on the couch and play Fighting Force 2. While you're typing away your comments, don't forget to like this video and of course subscribe to my channel because it really helps me grow, and there are just so many game reviews on it you guys can watch. Coming up next, if you haven't caught it yet, you're gonna love my review of the original Fighting Force, and that is where I will showcase the dark secrets of this series with Ken Lockley. He was serving, I think, 25 years in prison for his crimes, and so by now he is probably out, or he's getting close to being out. Knock on wood, he is still locked up, but we'll see. Anyway, gamers, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you play a video game today.